Rampage is implemented a way to gang loose color images or ripped pages onto a specified size sheet. With the ganging feature, you can gang ripped pages using the contextual menu from the Rampage client or by using drag and drop. Gang loose color photos of different color modes and different formats. You can even drag and drop an entire folder of images. Create separate gang queues that have different parameters for ganging to different output devices. In order to do ganging, you would need to have Rampage System Software version 10.1 or later and a gateway application set up and running on a Rampage PC. For the ganging to take place, make sure you have a Rampage gateway application online. It is the Rampage application which creates the gangs. Select a Rampage icon on the Windows desktop. Click the right mouse button over the icon and select Copy. Right mouse click over an empty area of the desktop and select Paste. Right mouse click and rename the shortcut to Rampage Gateway. Right mouse click the Rampage Gateway shortcut and select Properties. In the Shortcut tab, replace everything after the dash in the target field to -UTIL. So for example, instead of -O, it reads -UTIL. Click Apply, then OK. To continue setting up the Gateway application, you need to set up the System tab. Open the Gateway application and select Preferences from the Edit menu. If you already have a Rampage RIP installed, set up the System tab in the Gateway application to match the System tab in the RIP application. The Rampage master volume should point to the server volume that holds the Rampage folder. The 4 job volumes point to the location of the ripped data. These preferences are used for various functions in the Rampage workflow. If you are just using the Gateway application for ganging, you do not need to have any of these options checked. If you are using hot folders, enable the setting in the Gateway application instead of the RIP application. Check this box to have the Gateway application pick up instructions to import or export pages and jobs. For more information on ganging, hot folders, import-export, or remote job submit, please refer to the Rampage User's Manual. Click on the Environment tab to remove any environment variables that may have been set with the shortcut that was copied. If there are any, please delete them and restart the Rampage Gateway application. Click OK. Once the Gateway application is started, you need to set up a gang queue from the Rampage client. Start the Rampage client and select Ganging from the Edit menu. Press the Add button to create a new gang queue. Enter in a new name for the gang queue or select an existing job from the Job menu. If you select an existing job, the new gang queue will have the same name as the job and the scatter proofs will be registered into that job. If you have any existing gang queues, you can select one from the Copy From pop-up menu. You might start by making master.proof and master inkjet queues for the purpose of setting default values. Once the new gang queue dialog is set, press OK. A gang queue setup window will open. The process cycle settings control the criteria necessary to register a new container. You can set the process interval and fill threshold. The process interval is used to space the creation of the flats. For example, If the interval is set to 5 minutes, 300 seconds, then 5 minutes will pass until Rampage takes all of the images and pages in the queue and attempts to gang them on the full flat container size. If the gang software manages to fill a container up to the fill threshold, that flat will be registered into the system. Rampage will then wait another 5 minutes before attempting to fill the next container. This way you can continue to add images into the queue within the 5-minute window. The Profile section is where you create the rip and proof profiles. The rip profile is used to rip the flat. It is necessary to have the output resolution of the rip profile match the output resolution of ripped pages when you are ganging already ripped pages. Turn off bleed, traps, and marks when you are ripping already ripped pages. Once you have your rip profile created, save and close the profile. The proof profile is used to automatically queue the flat for a proof. This does not necessarily have to be to the proofer that you will eventually proof to. For example, you may want to create a monitor proof of a flat before you image to the hard copy proofer. So in this case, I'm going to just make a monitor proof of my flat. If I wanted to change from making a monitor proof, I would need to click Don't Use and then create a new profile for my device. Select the Sizes tab. The Container section lists the maximum size of the gang you will create and any border you want to include. In this case, I'm going to make my container width 30 by 40 inches. If I include a border width, this will actually reduce the container size. The Images section allows you to add a border to each image so they don't touch each other. You can also label each photo with the name, path, or date. All 3 labels appear at the bottom of the placed image in registration color. Save and close the Gang Queue Setup window. There are a few ways to add items into the gang queue. You can first select the gang queue in the top window and then drag and drop images into the bottom window. You can also drag and drop images directly onto the folder. When you need to add Rampage page data to a gang queue, select a gang queue first and then you can drag and drop. Or use a contextual menu to queue the pages directly to the gang queue. Select the pages in the page list and hold the Control key down. Go down to Add to Gang Queue and select the queue. It is the process cycle settings in the Gang Queue Setup window that controls the criteria necessary to register a new container. As an example, if you only register a single image on a large container and your threshold is set to 90%, that image will stay in the gang queue forever. If this is the case, the gateway application will display the gang queue name, a message stating that it's skipping the container, the current density of the items in the queue, and finally the threshold that is not being met. If you have files in queue and it's not being picked up, check the gateway application for a message. If the threshold is not being met, you can simply change the priority of even one image to immediate. This will force the creation of at least one container. The software will fill the container as best as it can. Even if you only set one image to immediate, other items that are still normal can also be ganged on the flat if they fit. After a gang is created, it is registered to the job with the same name as the queue name. If no job with that name exists, one is created. Containers that are registered all follow the same naming convention, SP for scatterproof, then the date and the time that the scatterproof was registered into the system. After a gang is registered, you can check out the Page Info tab to find out some information about the gang. We will report the total number of files, the percentage covered in the gang, and a list of paths and file names for all the files pages in the gang. Depending on what profiles you have set up for your gang queue, your scatter proof may automatically go out to your proofer. In this case, I just made a monitor proof, so I can double-click the monitor and look at the proof prior to outputting to my proofing device. There are a couple of cases in which the gateway application can't or won't gang an item. In some cases, the problem is encountered and the item is still in the gang list. In this case, the item will error in the status column of the list. It can either be removed or fixed and requeued. When adding ripped data to the gang queue, the DPI of the container needs to match the DPI of the ripped pages. If not, the pages will error, and you can see this error in the status column of the gang queue. To fix this problem, edit the gang queue and change the resolution in the Output tab of the main profile to match the resolution in the Output tab of the page you are queuing. After changing the resolution, right-click or control-click the item with the error and choose Requeue from the pop-up menu. You can also select the item in the gang list, press Remove, and then drag the item back into the queue. When adding an item into the gang queue, the item size cannot exceed the size of the container. If so, the pages will error with the status "cannot fit into container." To fix this problem, edit the gang queue to make the container size larger. After changing the size, requeue the item. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. Documentation for this feature can be found on the Rampage CD-ROM.